Hello everyone, I am Mr. Rain, and welcome back to Weapon Comparisons. It has been a while yet again, because, well, in a 1.7.1 patch, I did have an issue with the game, and essentially what was happening is that my frame rate was dropping like crazy, considerably, throughout the game, so I couldn't really test different weapons, I couldn't really try to play them, and I was just too frustrated to even try going into the range during this time to figure out whether or not the frame drops would actually occur while I'm actually in the range. That being said, that has all been resolved with a hotfix that took a month or so to put in because of the devs were on vacation, and they are currently working on 1.8.1. So while we wait for that, because that will also have more weapons to compare, we're going to look at two weapons from the previous patch, which is going to be the Honey Badger versus the AS VAL. Now this is a very strange comparison because even though these two weapons are essentially their counterparts to each other, they are very different in specs. So this will be a bit interesting because we're going to see, I believe, quite a big difference between one gun and the next. That being said, we're going to start off with the Honey Badger. It starts with 5 supply points, and the caliber of the Honey Badger is the 300 Blackout, vertical recoil of 26, horizontal of 10, a slow velocity of 259 meters per second, a fire rate of 857, and a penetration of 590. A typical standard mag capacity of 30 with full auto and single fire modes. So your foregrip is for 3 points, and your compensator is for 3 points as well. Now if we've been on this channel before, if you've seen my other videos, you can tell that by the vertical recoil, this thing is just going to shoot up, and with the horizontal being pretty low rather, that means it's going to be shooting more or less in a straight line, at least in theory. So let's go ahead and load this gun up and see what the iron sights look like. Alright, and so here's the Honey Badger, and we have the typical ring and crown iron sights. And this is very nice, actually. This is very minimalistic. Not anything that's really going to block your aim looking from one side to the other. The adjustment knob that's on the right hand side, like you would see on the M4, is not so high up on the side picture where it will actually block your vision from people who are standing on the left or to the right. You can kind of see there, putting the knob there where that doorway is, you can see a thing, but because it's so far low, that's not really going to matter in pretty much any scenario, except for like some very strange specific scenario. But outside of that, this is as clean of a iron sight that we've had on this game for quite a while. So with that said, let's go ahead and check out the recoil pattern. Alright, here we are at our firing wall. So we're just going to go ahead and shoot this Honey Badger with no attachments and see how it goes. 3, 2, 1. And indeed, the gun has a lot of vertical recoil, and I had to push down pretty hard to keep that spray down. That said though, you can see, just like every other gun, the first shot does jump up a little bit, just from one shot to the next. But then once you get to about your third or fourth shot, that's about more or less where it evens off. And as you can see here, there's very little horizontal going on, so this thing is shooting virtually in a straight line, with very little back and forth. So yeah, if you do like vertical recoil, then this definitely will be the gun for you. So with that said, I'm actually going to put on the foregrip to see what kind of difference we're going to see with the recoil. Alright, so now we're going to use the Honey Badger with the foregrip recoil for a total of 8 supply points. Firing in 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, there's not really a whole lot of difference from one pattern to the next. It's a little straighter. It took a little more of that horizontal off, just a little bit, which is weird because it's a vertical recoil or a vertical foregrip. But yeah, pretty much there's no reason to put a foregrip on this gun. It's going to work the same way and it kicks just as hard. So that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and check the AS VAL. And actually, before we check the AS VAL, I'm actually going to put up the Honey Badger with the compensator and no foregrip to see if there's any difference at all to the recoil. I'm really curious about this. Alright, 3, 2, 1. And it makes the gun shoot worse, as I would expect. So compensator is supposed to help with horizontal, but just because of like the specifics of this gun, it doesn't benefit it at all. You can see that the first shot to the second shot is a little longer. It's a little bit more distant with the compensator than without. And you can see here that you don't really get that first shot jump, or at least the first shot jump is a lot more controlling for the foregrip as you would hope. So there is no reason to run a compensator and very little reason to run a foregrip on this gun. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and refresh the range so we can test out the AS VAL. Alright, so now looking at the AS VAL, this one costs 6 supply points, so 1 point more. It uses a 9x39mm caliber. The vertical recoil is 28, horizontal is 13. Again, slow velocity of 295 meters per second, and an extremely high fire rate of 1000 RPM, and a penetration of 618. The mag capacity is also smaller with 20 rounds by default, with fire modes full auto and single fire. That's it, this gun does have an extended mag capacity for 30 rounds that will cost 2 supply points, as well as a foregrip. And as you can see, what's missing here is that there is no compensator available because of the built-in suppressor into the barrel. So yes, with that said, we are going to keep things fair, because since this is already costing 1 supply point more than the Honey Badger, we're kind of stuck with having to use the 20 rounds. So let's go ahead and run this weapon and see what the iron sights look like. So yet again, we have very minimalistic iron sights. No backside really, just everything's all up on the front. And I mean, I can't complain again because it's a very small iron sight. You're going to be able to see what you're shooting at. And yeah, just 2 guns with very minimalistic iron sights that are not going to get in your way in virtually any scenario. So of course, let's go ahead and check out the recoil. We're going to run the AS VAL with 20 rounds, no attachments, in 3, 2, 1. And that's 20 rounds. So again, extremely fast rate of fire. This thing is all about speed. And it definitely shows with how quickly we emptied out the 20 round magazine. It is far easier to control the horizontal recoil, rather the vertical recoil, than it is with the Honey Badger, because it is shooting a 9mm type of bullet, type of round. So yeah, this is definitely going to be the result you're going to find yourself getting more times than not, of course, unless you're panic firing. And yeah, so in regards to recoil, the AS VAL is going to have the advantage here just because of how small the round is. That being said, the pattern of it is pretty much straight up with a little bit of horizontal, and so very similar results in regards to how you would expect the Honey Badger and the VAL to react. Just that the Honey Badger is a little more exaggerated because it is shooting a larger round. So we're going to put a foregrip on this and see if there's any difference. Alright, so now we have the AS VAL with a foregrip, which will cost a total of 9 supply points, which is pretty pricey. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. AS VAL with a foregrip, 20 rounds. 3, 2, 1. And we get the similar revolver-ish pattern that we see with a weapon like the M4 or the VHS. And it's a lot smaller of a cluster rather than this one, even though I will admit that I did kind of undershoot or overcompensate the recoil. So you can definitely use the AS VAL without a foregrip and get a similar result as this with some practice. But if you want to be a little more consistent with the gun and you just want to have it be like this more often than not, then the foregrip would be recommended. But again, it's not actually necessary. And since there's no compensator, I'm going to go ahead and just grab the 30 round mag and see what that looks like. So this is the AS VAL without the foregrip, and this time with a 30 round mag. 30 round mag does cost 2 supply points, so now we are at a total of 8. So this will be your median loadout for if you want to have that 1 extra supply point. Alright, and 3, 2, 1. So you can definitely feel the recoil a little more without the foregrip, and of course it's going to be a little harder to control if you do decide to mag dump because you will have those 10 extra rounds. That being said, you still get a fairly straight line going up with a little back to the left, with a little left to right. And that's really all I can say about that gun. It works just the way you would expect. And so long as you have some trigger discipline with a 30 round mag, you can get some fairly good results with it. And of course, if you do want to go all out, you can put a compensator, rather, a foregrip and an extended mag for a really high price and get a somewhat decent result similar to what you see here with the foregrip and 20 rounds. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and go to our conclusion. Alright, so in regards to the AS VAL and the Honey Badger, which weapon is actually better? Well, in regards to damage, the Honey Badger is definitely going to take the win from that. And with the recoil pattern being the same as the AS VAL, just a little more exaggerated, the Honey Badger is a little better. Not only that, it also costs 1 supply point less than the AS VAL. So in regards to versatility, which is key to this channel, and the way that we score things, I would have to say that technically the Honey Badger wins this loadout, this comparison. That being said, the AS VAL does work really well in regards to low recoil, super fast rate of fire, and a simply easy gun to control. For a 9mm weapon, it does have a little bit of a sharp recoil, but that's just because of its high rate of fire, and not necessarily because of it being hard to control. So with the AS VAL, it does require a little more trigger discipline than the Honey Badger. With the Honey Badger, so long as you're familiar with your other rifles like the M4 or the AK-74, I don't think you'll have too much issue running this gun. Do note that this does rely more on the vertical, whereas the M4 relies more on the horizontal recoil. So again, it's really just a matter of preference, but recoil wise they both handle the same way, where they both shoot up harder than they shoot left or right. And outside of that, the only downside to the Honey Badger is that slow velocity. So tracing targets at a distance is going to be difficult with both of these weapons. They really are designed to be used more in like close to mid-range combat. Anything outside of 40 meters or so may be a little difficult, but not impossible. So yeah, so that would be this video. So thank you all very much for watching, and let me know what you guys like about the Honey Badger or the AS VAL, and which one do you prefer over the other. And so outside of that, I am Mr. Rain, and I'll see you guys next time.